Hello, nerds, and welcome back to our Grotmas coverage on 6++. Tom, the very lowest of men here, and today we're going to be talking about Chaos Knights. They've got a brand new detachment, some fun jank in here for you Chaos lovers, a bit of a combined, mixy, soupy type detachment. We'll be interested to see if we're going to see more of these going forwards, but hopefully some stuff in here to get Chaos Knights fans excited. As ever, please do hit like and subscribe, leave us a comment. Keep on supporting all the good work we're doing here, covering all the Grotmas stuff. We've got a little bit of a backlog because obviously the weekend's just been. We're going to catch up and get you a few of the ones that released over the weekend very shortly as well. So let's dive into it. We've got the Iconoclast Fiefdom here. So I think the idea is to represent Chaos Knight nobles going to war, followed by lots and lots of gribblies on the ground. So cultists, heretic soldiers, mutants. So obviously that's going to open up some degree of souping. And in the detachment rule here, we see you can bring damned units from Chaos Space Marines. That's accursed or cultists or traitor guardsmen. Combined up to 500 points in strike force. The damn models can't be your warlord. So this just means you're going to be able to plug some sort of chaff and gribblies into your Chaos Knights list. That, before we even get into the detachment rule, opens up a lot of different possibilities. One of the issues that Knight armies have is that they struggle to trade with things effectively and efficiently because everything they have is a vehicle, right, and of a decent size. So it's not easy to do small pieces of scoring or primary denial or sacrifice, etc., with great big Knight chassis. We've seen some Imperial Knights lists recently doing quite well by souping in Imperial agents to their army to give them exactly this. And this detachment very much opens up that possibility for Chaos Knights. I don't think you want to go too hard into the damned units, but obviously there's some really useful things here. And as we say, it's going to give you access to a few little tricks and tools that I find very, very useful in making good 10th edition lists anyway. But we'll come to that in a moment. What's the detachment rule then? Well, it's Dreaded Masters. So Titanic Chaos Knights from your army have the following ability. Dread Tyrant or a Wilder-friendly damned unit is within 9 of this unit each time a model in that unit makes an attack. Reroll a hit roll of 1 and a wound roll of 1. So your big knights are going to get more efficiency on their shooting and their melee. I think that's great. I think that's very nice. Getting some rerolls, really, really effective. Chaos Knights across the army more generally get access to a Dark Sacrifice. So whenever the unit is selected to shoot or fight, it can make a Dark Sacrifice. If it does, select one damned unit within 6. That damned unit then must take a leadership test. If passed, it loses D3 models. If failed, it loses D3 plus 3. And then in either case, you can then select one of the following abilities for your Chaos Knights units' weapons to have until the end of the phase: lethal hits or sustained hits. These are always good things to get where you can get them. So I think they're more effective on higher volume. So things that have good volume of shooting or volume of combat, carnivores or brigands, are going to benefit more from the specifics in particular moments. I like that they've gone with D3 plus 3 models or D3 models rather than mortal wounds, because that means you can't just absorb this all onto a cursed cultist. They've seen that one coming. So as far as this goes, there's some nice little buffs here in terms of getting some more efficiency and some more damage through in your combat, and the synergies with the chaff units that you're bringing here are nice. It's nice that the sort of the damned units aren't purely plugging in to do a utility role. They also actually give you some buffs that are quite nice as well. Let's move over to the enhancements. We have Profane Altar. This is a Chaos Knights model only, and each time the bearer makes a Dark Sacrifice, the maximum number of models are destroyed, so 3 or 6, but the bearer's weapons both get lethal hits and sustained 1. Now that, combined with the rerolls, is really, really nice, right? That's a lot of output, really buffing up. So you have a big shooty knight or a big fighty knight is suddenly going to be really, really pushing through the damage. Next up, you've got Pave the Way. This is actually my favourite one in the detachment, guys. It's a Chaos Knights model only. At the start of the Declare Battle Formation step, you can select up to 3 damned units from the army. The selected units have the Scout's 6 ability. A Cursed Cultist already scout naturally, unless you put Dark Commune in. If you have Dark Commune and Cursed Cultists in here, then you could have them all scouting forwards as well. So that is really, really nice. I think that if you do want to run this alongside a Curse Bricks, you can give them scout here, but you could also just have regular Cultists and regular Accursed all scouting into the midboard. That gives you that early presence, that early screening, early action doers, early blocking, and it causes issues for the opponent immediately and gives them things they need to respond to, which in turn is going to bring your knights into the game. So I really like Pave the Way. I feel like if you're going to bring some cultists in this detachment, you might as well have the ability to scout them forwards and threaten to start sticking things in the midboard, because cultists obviously have sticky objectives, which is very nice to have. So, Tyrant's Banner, 5 points, Chaos Knights model only. Each time the bearer makes a dark sacrifice, select one visible damned unit to take a leadership test instead of a damned unit within 6. So yeah, you can palm the test off. I wouldn't bother with this. Unless you've got 5 left over, it's beautiful for that. Next up, Diabolical Resilience, 35 points. You have a Chaos Knights model. The bearer gets the Feel No Pain 6-up ability, always nice to have on a big knight, and you can ignore any or all modifiers to its move characteristics and to advance or charge rolls made for it. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a solid upgrade. It's quite expensive, but making a big knight even more durable is definitely a plus. Overall here, I think, Profane Altar on a big knight or Diabolical Resilience on a big knight feels great. I don't think you're necessarily going to have the points going for all of these, but Pave the Way feels like an auto take for me if you're taking normal cultists. I think being able to scout them on so many terrain types just helps tuck them into places you want them to be. So I think that's really, really solid. Next up, we have the stratagems. All looking pretty good and fun so far. So the first stratagem is 1 CP. It is Avenge the Masters. It takes place in any phase. 1 Chaos Knights unit from your army that was just destroyed. Until the end of the battle, the enemy unit that destroyed your unit is marked. Each time a damned model from your army makes an attack that targets a marked unit, that attack has the lethal hits ability. So this just helps you push through wounds, especially good on a Cursed Cultist where there's a very high volume of attacks. Being able to turn that on and just swamp something with attacks, no bad thing at all. Situational, you're not going to use it all the time, but it's not at all a bad thing to have. Next up, we've got Wretched Masses. Use this in any phase. Pick a damned unit. Can't pick a Cursed Cultist that was just destroyed. You can use this stratagem on the unit even though it was just destroyed, and you can add a new unit to your army identical to the destroyed unit in Strategic Reserves at its starting strength and with all its wounds remaining. So there's definitely potential here with a big brick of cultists or the soldiers, the kind of heretic Militarum soldiers, pushing this out early, getting it killed, recycling it to come back and threaten in the backfield later on. These kinds of reinforcement stratagems are just demonstrably very powerful. We've seen them used quite a lot. So that's very, very good. Next up, we have Soul Hunger. Use it in the fight phase just after a Chaos Knights unit from your army has fought. Target that Chaos Knights unit effect. If 1 or more models were destroyed as a result of those attacks, your unit regains up to D3 lost wounds. If 1 or more models from Battle Shock units were destroyed as a result of those attacks, your unit regains up to D3 plus 2 lost wounds instead. So that's really nice. Just straight up healing after you fought is a really, really good. Being able to heal up a big knight especially, really, really, really nice. Next up, you've got Unrestrained Rage. Movement phase, just after a Chaos Knight unit from your army advances or falls back, you gain either shoot and declare a charge in which it advanced or fell back. I think that's fantastic. I think that's really, really nice, especially on big knights that can run through things these days as well. Next up, you've got Worthless Chattel. In your shooting phase, 1 damned unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, enemy units are not considered to be within engagement range of your unit for the purposes of selecting targets. So you can just shoot into combat, and obviously on 4-ups, you will potentially hurt your own unit instead. But just means you can be tying things up or keeping things tied up and also still shooting. I've not actually seen these sort of shoot into combat ones used all that much, but it's an option that you have. Next up, we've got Preserve the Idols. You use it in your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or full back move. 1 Chaos Knights unit that was within 9, you can select 1 damned unit from your army that is not battle shocked and is within 6 inches of your unit, and that damned unit can then make a normal move of up to 6, but it must end its move closer to that enemy unit than when it started the move. This has some real interplay with blocking off charges into your knights. Being able to suddenly shove chaff in the way definitely has some real application. And I think, especially with things like a curse, being able to move a curse closer where the Blood Surge, if they shoot them, could then take them into combat, has some very real applications here as well. So let's talk about this in total, guys. I think probably the main issue for this is that it has massive synergy with the Curse Cultists, I think, in particular. But obviously these have been nerfed repeatedly over the last few months. And so they're expensive, and their Blood Surge only works once per turn now. Nonetheless, I think this has some play. I think using it with little squads of cultists or a big brick to maximize the reinforcement strat is nice. I think it obviously has some tools for souping up the shooting of a big knight with lethal and sustained hits and rerolls. I think the issue Chaos Knights players have probably got is that largely they build by taking lots and lots of War Dogs, and it doesn't feel like this synergizes as naturally with the low-volume War Dogs, although it does have some play. So I think you're going to be looking at lists where maybe there's 1 big knight, several war dogs, and then some cultist chaff as well. I'd be really interested to see this explored with a brick or two of a cursed cultist, but obviously they eat points rapidly, and you've only got 500 to play. So I think you're realistically getting one brick of a cursed cultist into a list at best. But it does give you a different kind of tool to what you normally have. And I think this has plenty of tricks and plenty of jank in there for bamboozling the opponent a little bit, which I think is something Chaos Knights have struggled a little bit with in recent times, missing that kind of the shenanigans and the jank. Having a shoot and advance and charge in here is really nice. I think having a reactive move is also good. And it's just going to be about finding an appropriate balance between cultist units and your big knights, and getting something that works for you. I think this is super fun and thematic. I can't quite work out at first glance exactly how strong it's going to be. But what I do think is that it feels incredibly flavorful, and it's also going to open up some combined options. I think I'd be really interested to hear from Chaos Knights players about this. I think if I was the player of the faction getting this, my concern would always be that it's sort of pushing me away from just the army I'm already playing. As fun as combined arms type ones like the Brood Brothers one for GSC is, it's not always a feel good that you're being kind of nudged towards additional models that you may not necessarily have. But I do really like the flavour and feel of this, and I think it offers a bit of a combined arms potential that the others don't. And I think there's going to be some really interesting tricks to be pulled with this. And so certainly from my experience, being able to get several scout moving chaff units into the midboard early doors creates a very different game that drags the opponent out. I think Chaos Knights will really benefit from having multiple sources of sticky objectives hovering in the midboard, waiting to cause problems. That's going to force the opponent to come and deal with them, and you've actually got chaff and nonsense to put between you and your expensive knights. So yeah, I think there's lots of interplay here. I think it's a really cool detachment. It's one of my favorites that I've read so far in terms of its flavor and its feel. And power-wise, I think Chaos Knights aren't in the most powerful spot. I'm not sold this is going to suddenly lift them into a super competitive place in the game. But Chaos Knights fans, let me know. I would love to hear what you think about it. Thank you very much for watching so far. Please do hit like and subscribe. Obviously, remember, you can sign up to support us as a YouTube member as well. We'd really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.